So I'd like to talk to you today about a story of inspiration, transformation, service, healing, and joy. So the story begins when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. Although I had loads of support from different people, including my workplace and friends and even strangers, people kept coming up to me and telling me I was courageous and it was going to be okay. And I didn't quite understand what they meant by that. I kept saying, how am I courageous? Like, what choice do I have? I did not pick this to have cancer. Going back to work was a real difficult moment because I kind of had a new identity with the cancer. I kind of had, I wasn't sure in who I was anymore. I was more fearful. My body was different. And that was right around the time when a mutual friend that I had made asked me to meet a woman named Courtney So my very persistent friend told me that I needed to hear this girl's story. And the story that she told me was this. There was this young woman from New Jersey, Brick, New Jersey, actually, who had gone to Fashion Institute of Technology. And at her graduation, she went with some professors at FIT to India. And when she went to India to study fabrications, she was so taken by the poverty and the pain of the children there, the hunger, and so many children she saw that were abandoned, disabled, rejected, that she wound up staying in India. She moved into the slums and she began to work for an existing orphanage. And while she was in the orphanage, she became very disappointed in the way that the children were cared for. Their needs were met, they were fed, but they weren't being loved. And then there was a particular child, his name was Surrender, and he had a lot of disabilities. So they had taken this one little boy and they put him in a state facility, and in that facility, although she visited him regularly, one day when she went, he died. And that was how One Life to Love was born. Courtney decided that she was going to start an orphanage for disabled children who no one else would take in India. And she had no money, and she had no way of doing this. But she said, if I can only take one child, I'll take one child. And it just began from there. I wound up meeting with her through my friend's urgency and offered to buy me lunch. And I said, okay, but I have an hour because I'm really busy and I'm trying to get my footing back together in my job and my life myself. And so 3 hours later, as I'm still sitting there talking to Courtney, I was just amazed by her. I saw light in her. I saw devotion and mostly, again, the courage that she had to see suffering and do something about it. So I leave this meeting with Courtney and my friend, and I think, sometimes you go to a meeting like that and you're really inspired and you're really like, wow, this is amazing. And as time goes on, it fades a bit. Well, this didn't fade for me. There was something about her that I just felt like I want to help, but how can I help? What can I do? How can I help her? She's in India. It's such a brave, big step. How can I help? So I kept thinking about ways to help. And one of the things that kept coming to me was I really wanted my students to feel the bravery of Courtney, to be able to think beyond themselves, to be able to go higher than themselves. I really wanted them to experience that. I came back to my university, Monmouth University, and I called my global education department, and I made a phone call, and it went something like, I can't take students to India, right? I have a bunch of students that I would like to take to India and teach them like lessons of life. That's not possible, right? And as usual, Monmouth folks said, if you think it's going to be good for the students, then you can do it. Then, as usual, the counseling students rose to the occasion, and I had so many students that wanted to go. And so I began to turn people away. I had so many students that wanted to go. And on a personal level for me, I began to find my feet again, my sea legs, as recovering from cancer. And and trying to figure out who I was, this really helped me find inspiration to do the next thing. They also learned that there's a whole lot of suffering out there, and anyone can answer the call. Anyone can answer the call. They see the suffering, they can answer the call of suffering. And as therapists, as counselors, that's what we do. We help people who are suffering. And they come to us, and we help them in that. But for us to go and seek people who are suffering is different. And I think that they learned that. There's many ways of knowing, and we know one, maybe we know two, but they're infinite. Immersing the students in another culture where they didn't know anything. They didn't even know where they were going. They didn't know the children. They didn't know how to speak to children who don't speak their language. The immersion of that allowed them to not know, and they had to find a new way to know. The main thing that I wanted them to know, and I stress in the classroom, is that your truth is not the truth. And that was a very important lesson for them to learn. There are many truths. When you see someone suffering over in India, it's a different level of suffering than we have. Another thing that is very important, and was very important for me to have the students learn, was that we were the ones who should feel the gratitude toward Courtney's children. We were getting so much more out of experiencing their love and their lives than they were getting from us. And I think anytime we do service for others, I think we like to think that we're good people and that we're doing service, but the truth is, and if we really examine this, why we're doing it is much more important to us than it is to the person we're doing it with. And the point of it is that there's a lot of joy in this for all of us. I, through this experience, found myself back from cancer. My students found joy in the service, and they found, I think, a better way of being. What can you do to find joy in service as well? The first thing is to be inspired by people who show meaning in their life, to have parts of being human that we often just kind of push past. Really look at the suffering of other people. Look at what they're, when you're walking by someone homeless, look at them. And ask yourself, why can't I help? Why can't I help? The problems always seem too big, and they seem like, well, if I give someone money, that's not going to help. Probably not, maybe so, I don't know. But why can't you help? Why can't you get involved? What are we so busy doing that we can't get involved? Pick a passion that you care about, or 2 or 3 passions, and immerse yourself. Yes, money, but not just money. That's not the part that brings you joy. Money helps people, but you don't get the joy from bringing money. Get yourself involved, put yourself in it. Be part of it, help. Do what you can do. Use your own creative talents. Live a life that's bigger than you. And don't judge yourself. Don't judge others. Am I doing enough? Am I not? I can't get involved. I'm not good enough. I don't have the right degree. I don't have the right education. I don't have enough money. Courtney had no money, and she just did it. And always remember, too, that your truth is not the truth. We don't have to judge people to feel safe. We can just allow them to exist. I use a mantra, I think everyone's doing the best they can. And so I want you to consider this story and look at what Courtney has done. Look at what my students have done. And I would like you to consider finding joy in service, letting go of your transactional lives, and finding joy in the giving and service. Namaste.